Welcome to the Syracuse Basketball Podcast. As James refreshes himself over there, I'm Bobby Manning, and we have a special show for you here. A lot of people have been watching replays left and right, and one of the first things I did when this whole quarantine began was get some games rolling. There's a whole YouTube channel full of Syracuse replays that you can get. Unfortunately, not the Duke-Syracuse game from 2017, which is what I wanted to do here. But anyway, we'll take it back to 2003. Saturday, it's going to be Kansas, Syracuse, the national championship game, the lone one hanging high above the dome, or used to be. They have it down right now while they fix the roof. But this was the game that set that up. They have all the YouTube games if you want to lead up yourself into Saturday at 7 o'clock when it's Texas and Syracuse, and now Syracuse and Kansas on Saturday at 7. We're rewatching Syracuse, Texas here today. You'll be able to watch it right on the stream like we are. We're going to do it real time, react as the timeouts come rolling along. But we have some news, unexpected news, rare good news for Syracuse of this kind. It seems as though, according to a report from, I believe his name was Jeff Erman.
Yes, correct.
Patrick Capay might pull out of Duke and join Syracuse. Syracuse was one of the earliest teams in on the grad transfer from Columbia, a center, a scorer inside, a position of need, and someone James hasn't always been too high on coming from out of Columbia with the grainy footage we have out of there. You look great in those videos. It's just, the Ivy League, the competition, all those things. One thing I know for sure, James, is that he has experience and that he's on the older side and that this will be a make or break year for him. So if they do end up landing this guy, I think it's not even think. I mean, if anyone's able to play minutes at center, it's going to be a help for this team. I don't think there's any disputing that.
Yeah, we'll get into the rewatch. Just want to mention before nothing's confirmed yet. He did decommit from Duke. That is confirmed.
It was official, yes. Good point.
Multiple reports coming out regarding that. We don't know if he's going to go to Syracuse, but per the tweet, Erman, the guy's name is Erman, just said that he wouldn't be surprised if a public announcement is made soon. So we'll see what happens on that front. But tonight we're going to get into the Syracuse Texas rewatch from 2003. Bobby, I want to set the stage here before we actually turn the game on. I was 11 years old when this game happened, when Syracuse made their run. How old were you?
That would be April of 2003, so I would have just turned 5. Sports weren't on my radar, certainly, and as a Boston kid, I don't think Syracuse was at that point.
So what you're saying is you were not watching this game?
No. In fact, this is the first time I've come back and watched bits and pieces of it, but this is the first time I'll be watching it in full.
Wow, okay. So I've rewatched this game since it happened. I mean, I've only rewatched it twice, today being the second time, and I guess I'll do it a third. But just setting the stage, Syracuse was a 3 seed in the 2003 NCAA tournament. As everybody that's probably watching this is, very familiar with, Carmelo was on that team. So was Hakeem Warwick, 2 guys that went on to play in the NBA. Carmelo's still playing. Hakeem had a decent career in the NBA as well.
His actually just ended a year ago with the Iowa Wolves.
Pretty long run, man. Pretty long run. Jerry was on this team for the uninitiated, and there were a lot of other good role players too, which we'll get into. I think we'll see in this game. Josh Pace had a really important game, I thought. And some other guys stepped up as well. So we'll get into those guys. But yeah, I mean, Syracuse had their run. Started the opening rounds in Boston in the Fleet Center, Bobby.
Yes, that's right. And someone mentioned that to me recently because I never knew that. So they were playing the first 2 rounds in Boston, which at that point was a stadium that was under 10 years old. So it was one of the newer basketball stadiums out there. The Fleet Center, which has since become the TD Garden, and 5 years later hung a Celtics championship banner.
Very well. And then, the regional was in Albany. So Syracuse, had a pretty, large fan base as one would expect there. Won those 2 games and then set the stage for what was the Final Four this year in New Orleans in 2003, this particular year, which is where Jim Boeheim had previously lost the national championship to Indiana on the buzzer beater from Keith Smart. So just setting the stage there, for fans that might be uninitiated. But yeah, Syracuse goes on. They win the game. We'll do it live, and we'll cover the game from soup to nuts as we'll do in the rewatch. But Syracuse was a 3-point underdog in this game. They were also an underdog in the Kansas game as well. But Syracuse was a 3-point underdog. Texas had Player of the Year T.J. Ford. Brandon Mouton had a really great game in this one, but they were able to overcome it due to Carmelo's really 33 points and some other guys stepping up. Hakeem got out to a great start. Jerry had a good game. So, but not the Syracuse that we're used to these days scoring a lot of points, but Syracuse put up a lot of points in this one, and Carmelo really did his best work in the Final Four.
Well, I thought it was interesting looking back on that year and getting into the thick of it that Syracuse did not win the Big East that year. Pittsburgh won it, actually, which was interesting.
Pittsburgh was a 1 seed in the tournament. Yeah.
Yep, and then Cuse was actually a 3 seed behind Wake Forest, and Oklahoma was the 1 seed on that end of things. So they did end up running into the 1 seed in Oklahoma, holding them to 47 points was something. I mean, we watched that Sweet 16 run a couple of years ago, and we thought that was something that team was holding Michigan State and the likes to under 60. This defense was holding them to under 50. And like you said, TJ Ford taking that Player of the Year ended up being a lottery pick, not a very impactful one, but Syracuse, the way they were world beaters through this tournament, looking back on it, going into it, it didn't seem like they're actually one of the favorites going in. Do you remember who people were looking at as like the favorite of this tournament? Of course, Kentucky's always up there. Kansas themselves, always a favorite. And Texas kind of rolled through their regional as well. I don't think they had a game closer than 10 looking at, except against UConn. Yeah, they won that one by 4, but they rolled pretty much everyone else.
Yeah, so this is before I really got into college basketball. I as I said, I was 11 years old, so I didn't watch college as a whole. I kind of just watched Syracuse. But that particularly, Oklahoma was good. They had a guy named Hollis Price, who Syracuse did meet in the Elite Eight. They were one of the favorites, along with Texas, Kansas. I think Florida was a 2 seed. Kentucky was up there as well. I don't think people were necessarily high on Pittsburgh. I think Arizona and Kansas were all in the mix, but and then you had Duke as well. I think Duke was a 3 seed as I'm scrolling through here. But I admittedly didn't watch much college basketball. I probably didn't start until a few years later. When I really got into the Big East, and then I started watching more like the national scene as well outside of the Big East in later years. But Syracuse was a 3 seed, but I don't think anybody even really pegged them other than Bob Ryan. I was pulling up some old Around the Horn tape today, but other than him, I don't think anybody really pegged Syracuse to win the title that year, especially going into the season.
So we're the perfect people to be talking about this one. We could have pulled Bob in. That would have been interesting. He was definitely at those early games. If I know him, he goes to any college basketball whatsoever. And I'll tell you, he's at the BC games a lot. So that's how hungry he is for college basketball. He'll go down and watch those games next to the empty stadium. He's one of like 10 people that goes down there. So we'll get into this. We're going to watch it fresh, just like you guys. I'll be sharing the screen here, so we'll pop in during the timeouts, or if anything memorable, crazy happens, we'll jump in and have a quick conversation about it. But this is pretty much a replay for us, for you. If you want to jump in live here, there's a chat as well I see on the right side. You can jump in yourselves with any comments you have. So what do you say, James? Should we get this started?
Let's do it. Let's get it rolling, man. I'm looking forward to it. Do we have sound?
Is there no sound?
I don't hear it.
No sound. No sound was coming through?
Not for me.
Oh, shoot. Let's see. Is there a button? Then I have to press. I think it just said something about sound.
Gonna have to edit it out on the pod, man.
Yes, we will. Classic situation here. Huh, that is interesting. Let me see. Oh, well, let's just watch the first segment without sound, and then we'll roll from there after the first timeout.
Let me see if I can try to do it on mine. Hold on. Let's see.
I hear it coming through.
Let me share my screen. Share. Okay.
Hey, at least we're not. I mean, CNN's having the same problems right now, so we shouldn't feel too bad. There we go. There's your screen.
All right, my screen's up.
It sounded like there was sound coming through on your side. There it is.
3 teams that stayed in the top 10 all year long, so that's something that they can claim. Tipped out to 4 as we get the tonight. Williams and Jim Boeheim battle for their first ever championship on both sides. There's the zone, 4th in the middle with that wide wingspan of 7
Syracuse comes out in the 2-3 zone. Stop it.
Take it away from Ivy right away. Great hands by Blaney. That zone was
The team got off to a great start in this game, too. Up and under. Great move with the pump fake, up and under.
Ivy 3 from the wing. Tipped around Thomas. He's strong. The biggest set of shoulders.
Not the guy I'd want to get a jump ball.
He knows how to go get it. Tying it up, the arrow goes to the Orangemen. Thomas, an upstate New York product. One of the great rebounders in college basketball. Here's Carmelo Anthony. Boy, Ivy's given up a lot of size on Anthony.
You want to roll for war after the jump?
Pretty good start for Warren, huh? A young man that averages 15. Some big numbers. People expect him to all week that TJ Ford can break down this zone, but Texas struggling on its first 3 possessions. Tim, one of the things that Syracuse has done in this tournament, they have shut people down completely with this 2-3 zone. They're 6th in the nation.
There's Boeheim. His demeanor on the sideline hasn't changed.
That foul down there was committed on Texas James Thomas. By Thomas. Anthony turnaround.
The team's still active on the board, though.
What he wants to do, push the ball up the floor, try to beat the zone down more than they do. Time with the three.
Newtown has a really good game, man. He comes out and he hits that 3. He starts to mix it up a little bit. No further alert, but he might have another time.
TJ Ford to do just that. Push on Newtown and Syracuse, the East Regional champions. Their road to New Orleans, Manhattan. Oklahoma State down 17 in that second round game in the first half. Then Auburn and then Oklahoma decisively. Well, they beat 3 Big 12 teams this year, beating Missouri during the regular season. They're trying to go for the Big 12 championship.
Teams are going to work now. Okay.
He was so crucial. I mean, all that length he brought. Huge dunk later in this game that we're going to get to.
Newtown and other teams. This is wide open, man. I mean, Quest kind of, he came up and then left that corner wide open. Team heat test, man. That's at the end of the week.
Freshman Buckman clears. Rifle pass. Picks it up.
Good board.
So surprised he didn't make that one either.
Aggressive ball.
One thing I'll say, this team played with a lot of pace, and there were Boeheim teams back in the day. We're not used to it now that played with this kind of pace. We're able to get out there and get that shot right off.
I mean, that's just Jerry going in and getting a board. Like, the guard gets the board and just go. Just get it and go. So, like, we've seen Syracuse do that sometimes, but also, like, Syracuse hasn't always had the depth in recent years to get out and run. You know, this team in particular, I mean, Boeheim would go 8 deep. So you can kind of see that.
This was New Orleans, so you had to go with the green and purple. But I don't know. Every time I go back and look at this, my colors are green and orange primarily. I don't know about the green and purple combination on the court.
Yeah, I don't like it either. I get why they did it, but purple and green, not exactly complementary.
Another thing I notice nowadays at these super stadiums that they play in, I guess this was in the Dome too, but players, coaches off the court, you know, they're underneath the little hang off there where that, you know, Kevin Ware injury ended up happening.
Yep.
This one, they're on the court. More of a typical look.
This was the second game of the night. They almost trailed a bit. Some of the writers in the back look like they're left. You know, this is the second game of the night. I don't know why you wouldn't stay for both. Kansas and Marquette was the first game of the night. This is the night.
There's those long arms of Warwick again. 6'9", plays closer to 7 foot.
Very.
Wow, that is Boddicker and a takedown.
Bad first 4 minutes for Syracuse. Gave up a couple open looks for 3, right? But he's getting a good showing from Hakeem early. Good to get him going. Starts with the up and under. Hits 2 jumpers, and then Jerry hits the pull up, and then Noah hits the jumper. All in all, decent 4 minutes.
I like how Warwick's playing that middle quite a bit too. I mean, Craig Forth's out there, but he's pretty much just clearing off and letting Warwick on the block.
There's a good body in there. I mean,
Mighty Mice at 47, Slater Martin and company, and that's going against Syracuse. Team lost it. That was a great basketball game. They lost 2 games all year long. Oklahoma knocked them out of that NCAA tournament on a 1-point shot. Slater Martin played on so many great world championship teams, says he can remember that shot going in to this day. McNamara after a foul ball went back to the steal and over to Duane. Now in Texas on Ford.
So for those who don't know, Quest Duane, senior leader, only senior on this team, veteran guy, had a really good showing in the first few rounds. Second round of but Duane played a really important role on this team. Senior guys can knock down shots, lead the zone, lead the program. But a lot of Syracuse fans might not recognize that. If you're not familiar with this team or this program, times have changed. Final 4, you played at the very positive so far. Good board by Miller.
Anthony pulled up jumper. Not many freshmen capable of doing what you saw right
there. You don't really see that too much in the game these days, right? You don't really see a player focus on the fast break like that from 15 feet on the fast break.
Harris, Boddicker goes flying through, and it's last touchdown. Surprised that Thomas is out of the game this early for this long. And you can see Rick Barnes wanting to go to that bench, but you're not going to wear down this Syracuse team. They don't go to their bench often, but because of the zone, they have pretty good stamina. It over to Anthony. Doubled up, so they swing it around. It's McNamara with the three. Freshman right here. It's not that heralded. And there's Ford going in, but no place to go. Those long arms. That Syracuse zone just blanketing it inside. Fox is coming in for Texas. You can go to CBS Sports Line for official Final Four merchandise. Click on shop at cbssportsline.com or on America Online. CBS Sports Line. This lead now, this early lead of 8, that's the biggest deficit for Texas in the tournament.
Jerry, he's check again.
It's down all the way 5 to Purdue. That's the previous large deficit of this event. And a foul here on Syracuse. That's what they have Duane inside, but again, you saw 2 Syracuse players way up above the rim. For that one, Mouton with a couple of threes and a basket in the lane as well. Wanted it early, Jim. Lucky shot. Hard to believe this man with the last name of Mouton, not related. Not at all. He's the famous Mouton sports players from this particular area. Mouton now with all 9 will shoot. One more. Syracuse brings in Edelman. What you see Jim Boeheim doing right here, a man that's had incredible experience of saying, hey, if they're going to go ahead and try to push my bench and extend it to wear my guys down, I'll go to my bench early as well. So the only Cajun in the Final Four, the only Louisiana product, Mouton with all 10 for Texas, feeling right at home here at the start.
Yeah, he tried that. His legs, his feet are too big for that position.
Get a little chippy down there.
But again, you saw terrific footwork on that young man's part.
Again, though, he's so crucial setting the early tone for them. I mean, GMAC got a few shots off. Carmelo got a few shots off through those. But, I mean, he was the guy with the ball in his hands early in this one.
Yeah, he did that in Albany, too. I mean, he started I don't know if it was the 216 or the early day game, but he started the game off with a dunk. So. I mean, you would see Boeheim do that every now and again, you know, when he had a good center. Like, I remember going into Renzo and Walker early. Same thing with Raheem Christmas. Whenever they have, like, a good post player, they kind of go in, try to get an easy one to get started with the big one.
Whistle was on Warwick, so 2 on Warwick. That means Warwick is coming out. Makes Syracuse much smaller in that zone.
And then he gets the second foul.
To the bench with the 2.
Now, Boeheim these days is going to keep a guy in the game right there. But I don't know, bigger leverage situation here, different team.
Yeah, it's early. So Hakeem's going to come back in this half. So he'll still play him with 2. Josh Payton's going to have a really important stretch here. Watch out for it.
Ford playing off Edelman. He's going to have to take up some slack and get closer to try to power a little bit.
No spin, lefty floater. This is the guy.
How about that coming off the bench with no sweat at all?
Josh Payton was the ultimate glue guy. He was a glue guy before the team even existed. You know, he was a good role player, did everything he needed to win. He hustled, he'd rebound, dive on the ground for a loose ball, he'd hit a shot. Not a great shooter, but he could mix it up and get in the paint. There you go.
And there's a big block, yep. Like he.
Mouton's been exploded. It was
Just a
amazing.
sophomore.
He didn't step out of bounds there, but there you see he's coming over. Doing a real nice job of that block. Mouton looks extremely quick in this team. Played well here 2 years ago. Texas played in the tournament. First round loss, though, to a team that like to go with the zone. Playing against John Chaney's Temple team in that ball game, and nobody disguised the zone any better than Chaney. McNamara again.
Quick entries.
McNamara for 3, assist by Pace. He got it right in the shooting pocket. It was a great pass.
Points against Georgia Tech. He knows that. That was a game early in the year. Showed what kind of skill.
It gets worse after the 3 minutes, no buckets, and then that.
Really go after it. Boeheim taking his alma mater to 3.
7 turnovers in 7 minutes.
7 turnovers. Jeremy McNeil, number 34, center as well. He went to high school in Texas, actually. So playing against Texas in the national tournament.
And that's how they break it open. They get ahead of the zone there. I think 2 guys were back.
Yeah. You see a lot of teams try to do that. They beat the zone down the court. Obviously, it's easy to do off a turnover or a missed shot, but you see teams try to do that. Face for the fader.
2 shots in the paint for Pace. He has the feeling. You can see it.
And he just pulls them right back into the game there after 4 minutes of nothing.
On that occasion, he knows Mouton watched the ball. We're 8 minutes into the game, and Mouton's already exceeded his season average of 14, 15 of the board points and a steal by Texas. Harris, McNamara came over to
I love the play he was setting up there, and then he gets back and makes that steal.
Yeah. You know, McNeil definitely should have caught that. I don't think he knew it was coming. McNamara kind of with a no look, but off those two plays, Jerry makes the turnover on the push-off, comes right back down, gets the steal. Turnover there, comes right back down, gets another steal.
So a 3 by Mouton, a 3 by Ford, and
Great pass.
It's a hand in there on McNeil.
Yeah, quick Melo's passes up.
Ford has worked so hard on the weight strength, gives him that incredible stamina. Listed at 5'10", he's probably every bit of that, but no bigger. But one of the stronger players on his team. He's going to go to the foul line. In the Big East tournament, this young man's at a tied, actually, a Big East tournament record with 8 blocks against Connecticut, Jim. And we know what Connecticut can do offensively. A tough team to block shots against.
8 blocks against UConn. I hear that right?
8 blocks. Man. I think Jeremy McNeil's biceps are bigger than my head. He's a dude. I mean, Syracuse would go to the press a lot, and he was a guy that you could just have back in the press. And it didn't matter. I mean, guys are coming in 1-on-1, 2-on-1. He's sending a shot into the 5th row. It's a great shot block.
Thomas on the bench with his block. Reached timeout here, 11 minutes to go first half. Slash singular.
All right, you want to take a break right there?
Take a break.
So, yeah, shocked by the amount of offense that's going through other guys on this early in this one. I mean, the story of this game was Melo, and I think we'll get to a halftime what Melo said recently about this game. But they were going through work in the post. They were going through GMAC on that fast break, and then work goes down with those 2 fouls. And like you said, Pace comes in there, gets a couple buckets to go, and that floated them when Mouton and Texas offense hit 3 straight shots right there after the 4 minutes with no buckets at all.
Yeah, you see Syracuse working the ball around. I mean, not necessarily like a set play, but you're finding McNamara open on the skip, him hitting the 3 early. You saw Melo come down. He hits the pull-up in transition. Same thing with Jerry. Melo gets another one to go on the half court. But, you establish Hakeem early. You work some other guys in there. Hakeem picks up his second. Pace comes in. He gets involved. Even Billy Edelin taking over the point guard spot and, Jerry going to the 2. He's still able to come in and get shots off. He hasn't scored yet. But he's coming in. He's getting shots. They're looking for McNeil down low as well. So Syracuse can really work the offense around a lot of these other guys, and then Melo will establish himself later in this game as we go.
And Texas, they play more players in this game, 10 total, but if Syracuse, especially early on, gets more quality minutes from more players, and we're going to look at Billy Edelin and Josh Pace, of course, in this sequence, and Jeremy McNeil. Those guys were playing more minutes than Texas was rotating guys in for just a few minutes at a time. Pace plays 20 in this one. Edelin plays 20. McNeil 17. All plus minutes from them, too, and they get 4 fouls out of McNeil, too. So we can jump back into the game.
Let's jump back into it. 8 deep for Boeheim, man. 8 deep for them.
Mm-hmm.
Thomas, Texas remains out of the game. Now we have Erskine now playing on the foul line. Let's see if he stays here. We're trying to get some passes. He's doing a good job dropping down inside, but there is room to get that ball straight ahead. Ford again with a 3-point try. Not what Texas wants.
Pace for the big rebound. Clear.
Senior, and he pushes off. Now, I don't know because there was no movement from Syracuse, but it looks like Texas set up a little 2-3 zone of their own. Now, there's one thing that should help Rick Barnes. He has played against the Syracuse zone. The Coastal Province played 13
Royal Ivy, a really tough defender. Had a little run in the NBA, too.
Buckman come back in. And foul on Erskine. It always helps. It's tough to simulate this defense if you don't play it every day. Way outside.
And it does look like you see Texas jump into the zone there, and Syracuse answers with that nice out of bounds play. Yep. They're lucky they got the out of bounds there to adjust quickly.
Yep. It's off ball.
Like you saw in the first game from seniors Collison and Heinrich, he's been extremely patient. A man from Baltimore. We saw a guy from Baltimore not have a bad Final Four last year in Juan Dixon. Tom brings it back out.
Baltimore team very important. Syracuse would eventually land TJ Fair out of Baltimore. Looked up to Melo.
Nah, that looked like a travel to me.
That was a nice reach in, and he stole that ball from Ivy, who had an open look. So he comes in, he hits 2 shots right away, and that plays some solid defense.
Young Rick Barnes. Rick Barnes looks so young. They have no 16 age now. He did back in the game.
10 players who play 10 minutes or more per game. Now, James Thomas, who, as you pointed out, only had 1 foul on him, he has been out a long time in this ball game, and he averages 24 minutes a game. He's down on the far end of the bench right now and has not come back in. Played 6 minutes all told in his first half. 1 of 2 for Buckman. And Texas is in a 2-3 zone of their own. So you often hear about a team that presses doesn't like to be pressed. How about a team that plays a 2-3 doesn't like to play against a 2-3? Is there something to that? I don't think so. There you see.
It's always an interesting move when other teams jump into the zone. I don't know how much zone Texas played that year, but they go about 8-9 minutes without it there and jump into it for 2 possessions. Boeheim, I have a lot of disagreements with Boeheim, but I do like the methodology of always going zone, so you're always set in it. You always know what you're going to be running, and there's not a lot of jumping back and forth. It just keeps some consistency out there for you.
Yeah, I think Nance and Packer kind of make that point in this game where if you're not a primary defense, zone defensive team, it's going to be hard for you to maintain a certain level of success. But you see Syracuse starts to pick the zone apart a little bit here, and eventually go back to it.
And it gets Melo going too. You see it, though. 2 of the last 3 possessions hitting threes. He had the good look from mid-range early, but this is what gets him rolling.
Buckman's just in too deep, so there's nothing McNeil can really do. Can't let him get that deep at that point.
Ivy sat down on that pass, really jammed that.
This is where McNeil will come out.
Brad Buckman, born on Masters champion Ben Crenshaw's birthday. Now, why is that important? Ben Crenshaw and Brad's father, Brent Buckman, were college roommates in Texas and won national championships. 2 of them, did it. And now let's take a look at this defense. Back to man-to-man.
Edelin running the point, Texas back to man. Edelin dribbles around pros, gets a little flow.
Taking people inside.
And he actually did come out.
Did come out. McNeil did come out. Time missing the time.
Back to Bhutan. Over foot.
That's a big stop, though. The missed layup. He's right in position underneath again. They get the next stop there.
Yeah, you gotta clear out. You gotta get that rebound though. That's unsure.
38 shots. You know Texas is a good shot block. They have 119. Those are the difference. He traveled on the baseline and he moved. Earlier I said he moved on the out of bounds.
Wow, that's some kind of call.
Did he step over the line?
That must have been it, because you can move side to side.
Yeah.
Well, you can't move your feet because you can only do that off a score.
Oh, all right, yep.
So your feet have to stay stationary. But I thought he stepped over the line when he went to inbound as well.
Same result.
Turnover either way. Either one missing the ball.
I like the 15-foot post up by Fourth to set that up.
Good deny. Anthony with the cutoff on the baseline. Texas still gets the ball.
Really good first half. I mean, both teams are getting a lot to go on both ends. Good defense, too, though, for other stretches.
Yeah.
Syracuse has 65% through this point. And there's another one.
Now, that's a big one because TJ Ford picks up his second foul right there. He's going to sit the rest of the half.
And then he makes the head fake and slices just like we saw.
That's great body control by Melo. Able to kind of shift around him. You know, it was so great at that too, Paul Pierce. And I always did see a lot of similarities between those two.
Yeah, it's a great read. I mean, watch. The announcers are highlighting it right now, too, but he kind of cuts to his right a little bit. He pushes off that left foot and goes to the right, so he never really gets squared, so it's not a charge.
7:24 to go. Ross replaces one. Takes away some of that quick movement to beat the zone back down floor with Ford on the bench.
Yeah, no, he's done for the half with 7:24 left.
13, he leads the way for Syracuse.
All right, we'll keep it rolling.
Let's keep it rolling. I love they just showed the Melo smile. He did that a lot throughout the entire year. You kind of see it. It often came off like a jumper. Everybody knows the Melo series. You get the ball, don't utilize the dribble just yet. Hit him with the jab series. Pump fake, pull up, maybe one dribble, two dribble, create some separation. But whenever he would score, he always kind of put on a smile, which I think made a lot of people like Melo. Obviously he was really good, but he showcased that personality as well. I think that made a lot of people who maybe weren't familiar with Syracuse or didn't know much about Syracuse. I think that made them like Syracuse and like Carmelo.
Yeah, you start rocking back and forth like that, you're going to move the foot.
No doubt.
It's almost like a ballet dancer out there, the way that he moves those feet around. With that lead and the two fouls. He's back on the floor. Well, you have Blaney who could come back in there for him. Thomas working at it. Banks it up.
That's where you post up from.
Right now, you got Edelin running the point, Jerry up there on the opposite side of the zone, two guards there. You got Warwick, you got Melo, and you got McNeil back in the point. Warwick back in there with two.
McNamara, it was a different time taking that one step inside the three-point shot.
I think the official said they did
That
not
was only
see
a
it.
two.
Guys loved that back in that day. People would love getting right into that deep two zone, and a lot of people felt comfortable from there.
Well, you see, he goes under the screen. The center doesn't step up quick enough. Jerry's got a three that's going up every time.
Was on the line when he went up in the air, which means it would just be a two. It's where your feet were when you took off.
Yeah, it does look like he's going for a three there, but he just ends up with his feet on the line.
Yeah, just a left foot.
Watch this. See his feet, his left foot was inside. Now he ended up.
He does take a big step in there, though. That's very interesting.
You can't go under that screen. I mean, you got to shoot. That's Jerry mentioned it. He's going to pull it.
Great screen by Work, though. It's a good screening body.
He's got a head back.
Thomas now, Neal banging down inside. Back to the rim. Syracuse with the long
comes in for the board.
Good guard rebounding in this one.
Great speed. Now, Melo draws the foul, but great shovel pass by McNamara. He just got that in there.
Not much that this young man can do. Second team All-American player. He was the Eastern Regional MVP.
Now, Melo, I mean, Texas, I think they shot themselves in the foot midway through this half, giving him those zone looks, because he wasn't even having hands in his face on those 2 3-pointers that got him going on this 5-7 stretch.
Yep, no doubt. Caught a little bit of rhythm there. They went zone, and they give up those 2 threes, and they come right back out of it. So
Yeah, I think they were trying to give the offense right there. They're trying to just give Syracuse a different look. But
And again, like a lot of coach teams do that. I don't get it because, yeah, you might mix up a team for a spot possession here or there, and you might be able to force a turnover with it. But the zone is something you sort of have to have that reps and rhythm with. It's not just a magical cure-all that you can jump into. And again, Syracuse the better defensive team in this half too.
McNamara, another heat check. Shooter's mentality right there.
You can see without Ford in the ball game, there's not that dribble penetration inside this zone. So Syracuse can afford to pull it out a little bit. Ivy inside Buckman. He's producing the inside points for Texas.
Inside defense, not great for Q's though. That is the one area they struggled a little bit here the last few minutes.
Yeah, not great on that possession. You give up, I think it was usually up the baseline drive. And someone's got to come over and help.
There's that little jab step before it was actually a thing. Work, man. Yeah, his hand would be up at the basket on those drives, and he would always have it extended.
Coming up with a statue of Liberty, trying to do the statue of Liberty.
First half analysis.
Yeah.
We're going to hear from Roy Williams.
I can't wait for his dunk. I'm not even gonna hold the suspense.
Guarding Carmelo Anthony in this first half. He's giving up some size, but he says the closest thing that he ever played against.
One thing Melo talked about, and we'll get into this at halftime, is that Syracuse had the experience of playing in this dome, this kind of environment from the Carrier Dome. Texas, big crowd, loud crowd there, but not quite the same space when we talk about for shooters and everything else. Similar environment here, a little bit bigger. You get 30,000 more fans, certainly, but Carrier Dome certainly a closer preview to what they'd be seeing here than what Texas had during their year.
4:20 to go in the first half. Texas has never led. Ivy now has to be the primary ball handler.
Texas is going to cut into the lead right here. Syracuse still up lead.
Inside to try to battle on the boards. Harris. There's that. Rick Barnes.
It's a big shot.
It is a big shot.
You had a guy out on him, too.
It's going to be a big shot. It's the big involved a little bit.
Texas, though, tonight. 3 by Sidney Harris.
Ivy gets caught up on the screen. Then he gets the first one.
Syracuse still loves that play to this day. Run the guy up on the screen high and getting him free for that pass and shoot.
Syracuse moved in with him there for last month. Wanted to be around during March Madness. Didn't hurt him. Big family from Wilmington, Indiana.
Touchdown.
The outside. McDonald's All-American, Jim. It's not like he didn't come as a heralded recruit to this Rick Barnes program. Having an excellent first half. Which way is this going? Traveling. Travel. There's Ivy showing why he is such an outstanding defender. He has really done a great job this first half on both ends of the floor. 3:10 to play first half.
All right, let's roll right into halftime. We'll have a little break then.
Back here in New Orleans, 66%.
Now, Syracuse hands the turnovers right back there in the sequence too. They had a good lead in that area early on, forcing them in the zone, and they do a lot of things like that on that last possession that helped Texas catch up on the possession game.
Texas did he not pick up his third in the last 3 minutes. I'm surprised he's back in here, down to 6.
Got Buckman working the high post and every jumper.
Buckman's positioning was great first 10 minutes and even into this second 10 minutes. Getting back behind the zone, getting into the high post. Texas doesn't go to the high post a lot in this one early on, which I think hurt them too.
Ford was out. The team actually gained the point on the Syracuse lead. Brady in the lane, strong, and Buckman again.
It's a bad shot.
McNamara, the third steal of the game.
Point guard to point guard there. McNamara knew the place. Then his eyes beautifully on the play. A turnover right back, numbers for Texas. Futon, drive in.
Now that's a tough one, dude. Two guys hanging in the air, great balance.
What are your thoughts on the no call right there? There's no key, there's no cylinder, so that came years later. But what do you think of the no call right here?
Is the man at the moment with 20 on the Texas side.
There's not a lot of contact, but there is contact.
Hope you're enjoying the pictures from the Pontiac performance camp and enjoying this second national.
Look at all the fans on the sideline there behind the scorers table. Look how many rows, because they have a similar setup like that at the Dome, but it's like a fourth of the rows.
Right. It's funny, like, looking at the Jumbotron now. You see, like, in the Final Fours, the Jumbotron is big as the court. You know, and this is just a small, like, Jumbotron that you see at any basketball arena.
That would have been Atlanta this year.
Clock right for a minute. Shot clock at 34. Never got started on time. Game clock didn't either.
Now, would this have been Final Four weekend?
Go back to that great Final Four. John Thompson, who's with us.
Oh, you're saying right now.
Yeah.
Georgetown, St. John's,
I believe it would have, yeah.
everybody assumed
That must be why CBS is doing that. That's tough.
Raleigh Massimino's team played the perfect.
We'll talk about that a little at halftime, too.
John Thompson, who had the national championship to his name, and obviously brought a team to the Final Four here.
John Thompson, thrilled to be watching the Orange here.
Nice defense by Texas. Right there for Syracuse. That ball was just rolling free for a moment. Under 2 minutes to play in the half. Anthony steps back three. He gets his own.
Love that chase down on the miss. Knew exactly where it was going, too.
And that's his third.
Anthony did exactly what you said, Jim. A good shooter, in balance. He could see that shot was going to be off and followed it and tracked it right for his own rebound. Unfortunately, didn't get there in time.
Excuse me, that's the second. He's going to pick up his third.
Having an excellent first half, and again,
but that foul really hurts him.
Knowing how to use not only his bench but his starters, and he gets those combinations. There's that pass that I really think is available, right from the top of the key into somebody flashing to the high post. 1-1 here for Thomas. Buckman is 5 for 5 from the field. And that was the second foul on Anthony. Syracuse in the lane a little early. They were no call.
Lemon booty, as Bomani would say.
Outside push first.
Melo drawing another foul.
Anthony is so smart.
Again, impacting the game from all three levels. He gets in on these bigs physically. He's got the spot-up shot outside, and he gets in between, too. So many different tools in his arsenal.
Now he's showing us a post-up game. He'll shoot, too. Comes right out, starts his career with his first 9 games. He scored at least 21 points. In the game that Syracuse lost in the semifinals of the Big East tournament against Kentucky, and he goes 29 points, 15 rebounds. I mean, he puts up huge numbers. We mentioned Connecticut a couple of times in the Big East tournament against Syracuse. Connecticut actually 2 for 2 during the season against Syracuse. While Texas beat the Huskies in the Sweet 16 in San Antonio. As Jim Calhoun says, I've had 17 years to watch that 2-3 zone, so I should be good enough prepared for it. Buckner over the back. One of the few things that mistakes the young man's made all half. That's his second foul. That'll send Warwick to the other side for 2. You look at Jim Boeheim. With Jim Phelan retiring at the end of the season from Mount St. Mary's, Jim Boeheim is now longest active tenured coach at one school, Division I basketball, on his 27th season. And Jim, when you think that the young guy from Lyons, New York, showed up as a walk-on at Syracuse and became an outstanding player there, basically his entire life has been walked around that university. They talk about it, Syracuse.
I love it how they talk about year 27.
3 decades. He actually was
longest active tenured coach at his alma mater. We just finished year 44. He's nowhere near where he is today. But yeah, in 2003 he held that title of Longest active player for the world.
Question about him getting the Syracuse job before Dan came down to the lane. He threatened to go to Rochester. What a mistake that would have been for both Syracuse and Jim.
He's working all around.
Thomas. Out position, lost to Liberty. It's interesting, he has great hands on rebounding, doesn't have the hands on finishing.
Now, this is tough. I don't know about this call, but that's Anthony's third. And you never want to see somebody pick up their third foul under a minute left in the game.
Can't believe that's an important foul. Anthony's got to sit down. Interesting that TJ Ford had come back on the floor with the two.
We'll show the replay. There's not a lot of contact here.
Let's put him down for the rest of the half. Well, I'll tell you, though, you don't want to lose either of these All-Americans if you're either one of these coaches because they both bring so much to their team and are critically important for the second half.
Again, I think Anthony thinks a lot of that was like getting let go in the previous possessions. That he was doing very similar things.
Yeah.
Anthony is not fouled out of a game this year. 72 personals on the year. And surprisingly, and you
Pretty
think
incredible
this
stat.
would
Didn't
happen
foul out of one game off
that
the
Texas has, but Ford has fouled out of a game this year.
It is interesting. Syracuse's best players over the years, despite some of the issues the zone has with foul, and have been able to stay out of foul trouble. I think lately a Battle and Hughes and these guys never really in foul trouble.
I don't think that Ivy's the man that's going to be lots. Yeah, lots. 21 there. They call him out. They send Ivy away. Ivy's a 77% shooter. Klotz is a 61% shooter, so they can't fall Ivy from getting up there. Good one. Good job by the officials. Recognized that you can use that extra screen for it. Make the proper free throw shooter. One shot. That's quiet for 50,000 people. I'll tell you, 60 for somebody in the game is pretty competitive here all the way. Been a good one here. The second one, I think it wore him out in the first game, not being able to get into things. This has the makings of a good one here. Second semifinal with Kansas already securing its place. The Monday night's championship game. We got an 11-second differential. Look at Ivy defensively. No matter whether he's guarding the guard or guarding a guy like Anthony, he really gets out on people.
Dave's just going to take his guy one-on-one here. Lower spread. That sounds good. Beautiful.
You cannot execute any better than that. Beautiful job by Eagle. Timeout called by Texas. Akeem Ward averages 2.5 dunks a game. There is nothing subtle about his game. I'll tell you, Syracuse. Thunder dunk, 5-point lead. I realize Eagle is not a starting player, but he had 26 points against Notre Dame this year, so you see how well he can penetrate. Nice. Ivy driving in, scores with 7 seconds to go. A few breakdowns out front, the 2-3 zone is 8 seconds to go. Eagle's driving in, cuts it up with the buzzer. Ivy's first points of the half. Brings the Longhorns within 3. To say we're going to let.
All right, so we'll pause it here right before the second half begins. But what'd you think? What do you think? What do you make of the first half?
Well, I think Syracuse showed a lot of the offensive versatility that Texas didn't, and Syracuse just ended up shooting themselves in the foot with some turnovers. Worked through foul trouble fairly well, I felt like, with some of the bench contribution that they had, both at the center spot, the guard spot, and then the last few minutes for Anthony. They didn't have to wait too long without him, but I am interested to see in the second half, only 2 fouls to spare, how they deal with him in some of the opening minutes there, because Anthony wasn't a guy getting rotated in and out much during that sequence. They were able to move the guys in and out around him. Even GMAC, for how important he was in the early minutes, was able to get off the floor for a few minutes. Melo, right up until that 18, 19-minute mark, he was out there doing his thing.
Yeah, no doubt. And Syracuse really controlled the game from the get-go. I mean, I think the team came out and established himself early. Kind of got Syracuse off to a really good start. He picks up his second, so he manages to go the rest of the way without picking up his third, which is important. But obviously, if you're Syracuse, you had that lead. You let them get back into it, and then you've got Melo, your best player, picking up his third foul. after he got going offensively. So you might be a little bit worried right now at the half going into the second. But for the most part, I mean, I think Syracuse played a really good offensive game throughout. But Melo was really the key, kind of getting going through the middle stretch there, especially with those 2 threes as you mentioned. With Texas going zone. But you actually spoke with Melo somewhat recently down in Orlando. Before everything happened with the coronavirus. And
It's crazy, yeah, to think about that now.
What do you have to say about Syracuse and this game in particular?
I was just thinking last night, like the fact that I was at an NBA game the same month now. Well, I guess it's April now, but a couple of days ago it would have been the same month. And then at the end of it, we're not even thinking about having sports at all. And now it's Final Four weekend, and we didn't even have an NCAA tournament. Like that week talking to Melo, it would have been incomprehensible to think about what was to come a week or two later.
Right.
2 things I found interesting. Well, 3 really. The first one, you see Boeheim's demeanor on the sideline, a little rattled. He's always getting into it with the refs and stuff, but I see a little nervousness in his face that wasn't present in Melo. And I always think Melo didn't say this to me, but this is something he's talked about a couple of times is, especially going into the championship game against Kansas, he was sort of the one like telling Boeheim to calm down and trying to like calm his nerves because Boeheim had been here before. He barely lost to Indiana, and this is a massive legacy game. You never end up getting back there again after this. And looking back on it, it was a vital game for his legacy. He probably knew that at the time. And Melo was a lot more at ease. He was ready for this. He said like the morning waking up before this game, like they were able to get in here and he was ready to roll. Like he just had a great feeling coming into this one. And he actually talked with the LA Times at the end of February. And, a lot of people look back at his career and say, oh, the 62-point game against the Bobcats. He had some legendary performances in the NBA. But to this day, he says this is the greatest basketball game that he ever played.
Why do you think that is? I mean, obviously he goes out and he scored 33 in this one. But of all the games in his career, why this one?
I think this one had a special level of meaning to him. And the way he talks about Syracuse still – he really savored the time he had up on the hill. I think he had a massive amount of pride, and especially now where he's at in his career, looking back on the level he was able to play on here and just how hard it'd be to get to that point in the NBA. Obviously now, depending on what happens next with him and where he goes from Portland, he's probably never going to get to play on a stage quite like this one. And the Olympics are one thing that definitely has a special value to him, but being with a team, leading a team, and being on a stage this even and getting to this point, I think, was just such a massive thing for him. And looking at what he had to do to take this game, the Kansas game was a whole different story. He had to go out here and make bucket after bucket, 12 and 19, 3 threes, getting in on the rebounds the way he did, and lifting them out of this rough stretch they had going into halftime, especially with the fouls. Like there was just a lot of context here that I think made this one especially valuable to him. And he said it to the LA Times too. No one really believed in them going into this one against Texas. Like Texas was the favorite in this one, and he had to go out and flip that script. So I think all those different things add into that.
Yeah, for sure. And even in his early NBA career, he'd always said, no matter what I do from this point on, I think winning a national title with Syracuse will always be my biggest career accomplishment. And, I think that's for a lot of reasons, but he only had one season in college. So I think it made it, all the more special. And I think it's so hard to do. It's so hard to win a title in college, but it's interesting to see how much it meant to him. To see him speak about how much it meant to him, just his time at Syracuse and winning a national title. And it's just interesting because he had always kind of said, as great of a season as it was and amazing of a player as he was, he's always kind of said, like, I was just trying to have fun. I was just having so much fun at Syracuse, so much fun in college. And to see somebody so great and do something so special and have them say that they were really only concerned with having fun, it's just interesting because you don't think of somebody so accomplished and so good at what they do, just interested in having fun.
We have this conversation a lot about the greatest one and done, greatest freshman season ever with him. I think what he claims by far is his singular season as a one and done with his program is more associated with a program than any other one and done, I would say. And that includes Kevin Durant with Texas. That includes, Jason Tatum with Duke. Lots and lots of players have been rolling through programs and doing one and dones and that whole deal. I don't think any of them are still as associated with their programs as Melo is with his, and that goes down to donating the practice facility the way he did, going back in his jersey retired, being there on opening night. I mean, this guy still 20 years later loves Syracuse, and I think he's going to continue to be visible around the program for a long time. And you mentioned it during the first half, the impact he had on generations to come in setting a culture around Syracuse in just 1 year. Like, that's something you think you have to go in and do methodically, but by him going in and just being so careless about it, not careless, but not worrying too much about it and just doing his thing the way he did, like that set a mood around the team, the program that lasted a generation after.
Yeah. And I don't know that he, when he set out to do this or when he committed to Syracuse, I don't know that he foresaw that as having this impact and having it be everlasting in the way that it's been, but it's very impactful, and I think it's more impactful at a Syracuse more so than it would have been at a Duke or Kentucky, because you might have an Anthony Davis come through and win a national title, but there's a lot of people, not necessarily a lot, but there's many people that have come through those programs and done that versus at a Syracuse that has never been done.
Yeah. And that it's still to this day, there's nothing that really compares in Syracuse history. Whereas Kentucky, you've had a Rondo, you've had a Cousins, you've had John Wall, all these different guys come through. That's just like a big bucket full of talent. And I'll give it to Davis. I never seen anything like his run that year. Like no one even touched Kentucky when they walked to the championship that year. But the association factor with Melo is what sets him apart. Like he is Syracuse basketball in a lot of ways. And like, what other jersey do you see from Syracuse other than Melo? There's not too many.
It's by far the most popular, Syracuse jersey that's out there that anybody could have. But it is funny to see that sort of impact and how it continues on with the Melo Center, as you mentioned. He made the donation. The practice facility is now named after him, and he continues to have that influence as we are here, even the present day. Players go in there, they know who Carmelo Anthony is, they know what he accomplished at Syracuse. So he had his impact. It lives on through everybody that experienced that knew about that at Syracuse, and that continues on with the practice facility. And it's always going to be there with the history as well. I mean, people are going to look back on college basketball in the 2003 season and know that, this is Carmelo, this is what he did, this is Syracuse.
And a guy like him with as much video he has readily available on YouTube too, his impact won't die the way legends of the past have, who aren't as easy to go online and watch and figure out what made them so great. So I got the screen issue figured out. We're going to have better audio in the second half, thankfully. It was a little tough hearing you, but I appreciate you gutting it out and getting the video at least on the board there. So I think we should sound better in the second half. As I get it set up, what are we looking for here?
No problem on that. Before we do, I just want to mention one more thing. You mentioned Melo, and you spoke with him. I spoke with Hakeem a couple of years ago at a Boeheim's Army game afterwards, and he's still come back and been a part of like the alumni and Boeheim's Army and all that. And it was funny to hear him talk about these games and the run of the title game. And he wrote a piece for the Players Tribune, which I asked him about. And he just kind of said that Syracuse was so young this year that they didn't really understand the stage that they were on. Like they didn't really fully understand what they were accomplishing when they were doing it. And I think there's something to be said when you mention Boeheim over on the sideline and looking very and Melo sort of being like that young. I think you see the dichotomy there, right? Like
Boeheim knew what this meant, and those guys were just playing because they started playing at some point during the fall, and from there on, it was just a big rush for them. And that's something Melo said to me too. Is like he was nervous being at Syracuse right up until he got in with the team. They had the scrimmage, and then he found his people, and they were just rolling from there. And it was all about basketball from there for those guys. So there wasn't a whole lot of time to stop and think.
Exactly, and I think you hit on it there. These guys are out there. they're just sort of playing basketball. They're loose. They don't really understand the impact. Whereas Boeheim's been there. He knows what it means. He knows what this means for his legacy and everything that follows. So, just an interesting anecdote I thought I'd mention.
All right, let's fire this up.
All right, let's do it. Are you streaming it or am I?
I got it up right here. Yep.
Okay.
Thomas is over there on the side. Mouton is the guy that'll probably try to get in that
Coming
area of
through.
the zone to make Anthony play him.
Look at McNamara reach in and almost tie it up.
You can't concentrate too long and getting Anthony in trouble with the zone to get you out of the rhythm. Look at how they give Ford the outside shot. That is something he is going to have to work on so he can be a threat.
There you go. That's a 2. He hit a 3 in the first half. Lead is down to 1. Texas has never led, but they are approaching that first time here, having trimmed the 9-point deficit to 1.
Can you imagine the nightmare of me trying to guard him if he gets an outside shot?
Here he goes with the lead, Ford. And he is fouled by McNamara.
Is it going to be Delaney or McNamara that gets that one?
It's on McNamara.
That's tough when you don't have the momentum coming out of half and they just keep hitting you in the opening minutes of that second half.
The second half, and good job on Texas to be able to take DJ, who did not have a great first half, but has 2 fouls on him. Could be critical to see whether Anthony gets his 4th or Ford gets his 3rd first. What do you think?
Well, how about this one? Add this to the mix. The point guard for Syracuse, that's his 2nd. So the point guard's matching.
Foul trouble, a big thing right around the halftime for both teams.
You see TJ's parents.
And one of the things that I really think that
I don't think TJ Ford was like the most dominant, most outstanding player in college basketball. I mean, he had a decent year, but I think if you looked at other most outstanding players from any other year, I don't know that he would be one of the greatest. I'll put it that way.
Beautiful move, and the lead goes right back to Syracuse.
And Anthony playing smart right there.
Melo getting it right inside there.
That is something Melo talked about a little bit too, is that was a time when a freshman being the standout that he was kind of rubbed some people, voters, writers, people in college basketball the wrong way. So a guy like Ford got the benefit of the doubt with a thing like that.
Yeah, I mean, even in this era, one and done wasn't anything close to what it is today. Of course, you had the rule instituted a few years afterwards. But, I mean, this was rare. I mean, you didn't see a freshman come in and kind of dominate the way that Melo did. More so in this era than even today. People know the 4-year players today and who those guys are because there's so few of them seemingly. Because college basketball has become so focused on the media and how it's covered. But back in this day, I mean, this was rare. You didn't really see a freshman kind of come in and dominate or take over a season in this way. So I don't think people were really used to that. I don't think people really felt comfortable voting for, a freshman in this time.
Yeah, and Boeheim's someone who upholds that hierarchy as much as anyone. He's tough on the freshmen, but even he was like, this guy was different. He had never seen a freshman come in and do what Melo was able to do right away. And he, of course, he flips to the other side and says there was a bias against Melo because he was a freshman, and blame that for the reason Melo didn't get a lot of the attention awards-wise that he should have for his regular season.
He did. After this run, of course, I mean, who else are you going to give it to? He did win the most outstanding player in the Final Four. So, I mean, there's some recognition there. I mean, he was an All-American. But certainly, I mean, if you took everything that happened in this season and threw it into, 2019, 2020, I would tend to think that Melo would win that award today.
Do you know who won the Big East Player of the Year that year?
Big East Player of the Year. Was it a Pitt player?
No.
Was it a UConn player?
Nope.
Troy Bell.
Troy Bell from BC.
Okay. I think he still might be the leading scorer in the Big East. Marcus Howard didn't happen.
So Melo did not come out with that regular season with a whole lot of heart. And again, it's March Madness. A lot of things get reversed that the regular season wasn't able to bear out 2 different seasons in one.
Jim Boeheim gets exactly out of him what he wants. Actually, only has
But
2
Bob
goals.
Ryan of the Boston Globe knew who the best player in college basketball was. Shout out to Bob Ryan.
Bob did a great podcast today with Doc Rivers from home. They've been getting some good guests on that. And this is something you would like. They did a retrospective on the 1992 Christian Laettner game. They had Bobby Hurley on. They had Sean Woods on. And this was the first time both of them had talked about that game to each other since 1992 when Woods' team got knocked out by Duke on that last-minute shot. Woods still defends Rick Pitino for not guarding the inbounds. He thinks it was a 1 in a million chance that Laettner would catch that ball, and more so Grant Hill would be able to get that pass off.
Yeah, sure. I mean, if he doesn't hit the shot, if he doesn't catch it, take the dribble and turn, doesn't make it, then it's a great call, right? But because he doesn't do it, it's a bad call for, that's just how those things go.
Awesome podcast. I would definitely recommend that one. Now here comes TJ Ford. Quieter first half for him too, and he comes out and hits a couple shots here, and Texas is just right on them these first 4 minutes.
There's Melo working. I like how he gets the shot back there, but I like how he takes the defender, he dribbles away, and then takes the pass. He takes the defender with him.
Ooh.
Good job getting back on defense. You see Buckman, who is having a stellar
Bachman did have a game.
Yeah, he was a big piece. And the center, the centers back then, it was a completely different game. You look at some of the centers here, Buckman and Steele, and even Fort's pretty big down there. I don't think you would see as much of those guys today. And especially in Syracuse, how they have the centers, really need mobile guys out there to strip to the corner and high post and mobile and agile. So nowadays, you don't see those kind of centers or bruisers down low. They're not as common as they were back then in 2003. You'll see that with a lot of these teams. I mean, you look at Kansas and Nick Collison in the next game. You see a lot of these teams that dominate are really big centers.
Doing a great job for Texas. The Longhorns regain the lead. Luton and Ivy not giving McNamara any room for there. He got the jump shot on the switch. Ford underneath. Thomas came over, tipped it out.
Was there any doubt that Jerry McNamara had the green light?
G-Mac, Joe Girard, Buddy Boeheim, they're just all having fun out there this year. I mean, both of those guys are doing their best G-Mac impersonation.
I forgot where I heard it, and he said I think it might have been Alan Griffin, but a lot of people have criticized the Girard, the deep pulls or the threes that are taken early in the shot clock. And I think it was Griff that said, you want him to be loose. The reason that's been allowed is because you want them to be loose and that they can make 1 or 2 of those a game. You don't want to say don't take that and all of a sudden you got a guy thinking or a guy questioning or saying does the staff not believe in me or something along those lines. So I thought that was an interesting comment.
And I tend to agree with that. And I do think that's why Syracuse built the offense it did this year. Is they weren't afraid to take risks, and they end up getting top 25 because of that. As they would launch those long shots that would go in sometimes. I mean, look at the Buddy Boeheim shot that ultimately sealed the Virginia game. I mean, there was no doubt in those minds that if they had even an inch of space, they were going to let it fly. That's part of the college game and basketball in general for young guys. Like, coaches have to try so hard, especially late in games when they're trying to drain clock and the shot clock's off or something. These guys are looking for the space they need to get a shot off, and they're going to take it if they see it. And sometimes the situation in the game, the impact that shot could have gets lost because of it. And, talking about it on the outside, it's easier to see when the result happens, but on the inside, things are happening so fast that you sometimes have to take that lick of space that you get.
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's the argument, too. You might not get a better look the rest of the possession, so why wait,
Mm-hmm.
It's funny. Everybody's upset about the offense in recent years. Obviously not this year, but everybody pleads for a better offense. But at what expense? When everybody was, when Syracuse was winning games with the defense, people are happy. But when they're losing games with offense, they really see that they really want defense. They really want wins.
So the college jump ball, I never been a fan. I don't know. How do you feel about that?
I've never minded it, honestly. I mean, I think it's almost as fair as it could be. I mean, yeah, you could go to the jump ball, but if you got a small guy and a big guy, you're really just rewarding the big guy because the bigger guy's going to just jump up there and get it. So at least with the alternating possession, one team might get one more game if they win the initial tip, but at least it's alternating each time. I've never really minded.
That's a good point. There's Melo. I mean, the way he dips down on that shot and just gets it straight up, that was his prettiest shot of the night, I thought.
Vintage Melo right there. Just hits him with the jab, creates a little bit of separation, knows he has enough space to pulls up and buries it.
The freshman with 23. He has been well schooled. There's Mouton driving in, wraparound pass. Thomas inside for two. First time today that Thomas is
just really smart the way that he doesn't use his dribble until he has to. Hits a guy with a jab, see how he reacts, and then goes from there. Right there.
Warwick's shot had some good roll on it. That helped that stay alive for Melo. Another thing I noticed about Melo in this one, he has a great sense, and he always was a great rebounder, 14 in this one. Great sense of where the ball is going off guys' fingertips. I mean, he's on the correct side right there. He gets right to it as it rolls off. Instinct's unbelievable.
all the points for the Syracuse side in this half. All 8. Ford, again, as I said, an excellent free throw shooter, shooting 82% on the year. And Jim, you talked about the fact that he was not shooting well from the outside in the NCAA tournament, but he has done a fine job from the foul line. He was 11 for 13 from the foul line, 10 assists against Michigan State. You haven't seen many guys win the most.
Nothing like some college free throw shooting.
Texas still trails by 1. Could have tied the game up right there.
Absolutely.
Syracuse is going right in the Melo now every time down the court.
And Anthony doing a terrific job not picking up any fouls. Everybody from Texas saying he's using the hook move, including Rick Barnes, but he has it down to a science. He's still got that smile on his face. Mouton with his second. Got him by the back of the shirt, they say. T.J. Ford is third. Wow, that's a cheap foul for TJ to pick up. You're not kidding. Edelin's not going to do anything with the ball down in there. That's a huge foul.
TJ Ford picking up his third.
Inbounding again. Out of bounds plays have given Texas some trouble there. They play out of bounds in a man-to-man. Here it is, not using that dribble.
Still going into Melo. Doesn't like the spot on the floor. Is going to repost. Get it again.
Good appearance in that first half. And a hold against the Longhorns. You know, you get the feeling that Anthony says there's nobody out here that can guard me. Now you see TJ Ford grabbing Edelin's jersey when he got beat on the screen. That was a very cheap foul. Right now, I think Syracuse would be wise to go to Anthony because he's got the Syracuse players thinking, and he doesn't believe anybody can stop him. That was on Mouton. He has 3, and we're already in a 1-and-1 situation on this side. Anthony to the line. As I said, Jim, this young man had his first 9 games in Syracuse. Every game he scored over 20 points.
Excellent roll.
Terrific game, 27 points, 11 rebounds against Memphis in a loss in the Garden.
Syracuse 24-31 at the line in this one, 77%. Texas 62%.
Of the season in the nation, and Syracuse trying to find a way to get to the last game of the season if they can win here and then take on Kansas Monday night. It's an important possession for Texas. Ball squirt free, and Thomas with the basket. If you're Syracuse now, with Thomas
All game long, if they could get to that back line, they were going to be able to score. They had shooters pulling up the center a little bit.
Defensively, look to try to force that fourth foul. Anthony has 3 fouls on the Syracuse side. Ford with 3, Mouton with 3 for Texas. And Potiphar as well.
And you're seeing right here, Syracuse, a lot of screening action, especially on the high position. Probably a reason that Texas did go into that zone look early on, try to disrupt that a little bit. Guys coming around those screens, trying to break loose for shots.
Yeah, the offense was stagnant before that last possession, but they're trying to establish Melo and have Melo go one-on-one, make a play. But there you see the offense break down. Pace got to run in there and throw up the floater, and he misses.
And there's Mouton again to follow. Mouton had it in him.
Tell me Royal Ivy doesn't look like Kevin Durant a little bit. I'm not just saying that because he plays at Texas, but when I pulled up this game earlier today, I'm like, man, Royal Ivy kind of looks like Kevin Durant a little bit.
Force Texas to keep trying to double and triple team him. He's not a selfish player. He'll give it up. And that'll make Warwick kneel.
I don't know if I've told you this, but Warwick, the legacy continues. His sister was in my class at Syracuse. We actually went abroad to Spain together.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. He has a big family, and I think a few of them have gone to Syracuse now.
I follow him on Instagram. He's always pushing something, man. He's always pushing something. He's throwing down like some really nice meals.
Where'd you catch up with him, as you mentioned?
It was Bayheim's Army. I believe it was 2 years ago in Brooklyn when they played down here in New York City.
When does the basketball tournament normally get started? I'm actually supposed to speak to the founder of that sometime this month. I'll actually probably be reaching out to him again within the next week or so to have a chat with him. That might be under fire now too. A lot of summer events are getting canceled now.
They've maintained, and they haven't said anything recently, but they've maintained that they're going to have it this summer. But I mean, that's before Olympics else has been canceled. So I don't know if they're going to maintain that, but as of right now, it's on for the summer.
In Syracuse, unfortunately, one of the host sites of TBT, the opening round again, as it usually has been the last year or two, definitely starting to hit their peak, I'd say, when it comes to infections. It's spreading pretty quickly there, as I've been keeping tab on things. Yeah, it's going to be tough to see anything happening anytime soon. I mean, what month do they usually play that? I'm drawing a blank right now. Is it June?
In July. I think it was
July.
July last year, and went into August.
It's going to be tight.
And he was a real rookie then, going up against the all-time winningest coach in the history of the game.
I just worry about when we call this off.
The freshman.
When we come back too soon, or we go back to normal life, we can start spreading again. It's possible to say.
There he is, Josh Pace, getting back on the scorer's board.
Yeah, Pace, lefty. He's a really crafty player. I mean, heady guy, not a shooter by any means, but did all the little things well. Rebound, pass, found guys in the right spots, at the right time. Did a lot of things well.
Hit 5 of 6 in this game.
Can't get much better than that. Recently named head women's coach of, I believe, Western New Mexico or West New Mexico.
Congrats for that.
Mm-hmm.
GMAC for 3. Did you see GMAC becoming the coach he has with Syracuse?
I don't know if anybody foresaw it at the time. I mean, you could probably somebody would have said, GMAC's going to be a coach someday. You could probably see it with those qualities, the fight, kind of the smart way that he played the game, determination, how much he loved the game. I don't think it would have surprised anybody if he would have said it back then. But I don't know that anybody foresaw, him eventually becoming an assistant coach at Syracuse, when it was all said and done. He was just a freshman this year as well. Still had a lot of playing days ahead of him.
Otto with I don't know. I don't think anyone was feeling April Fool's Day this year, and I certainly I don't know. He tried his best with the Georgetown letter there. I was one to cancel April Fool's Day this year, though.
Rightfully so.
The second half, not as much of a pace as the first half had. Lots of running, lots of stops, lots of stretches of both in that first half. Here it starts to see it's bogged down by the free throws, fouls a little bit.
Yeah, free throws, fouls, a lot less movement going on. I think on both sides, but on the Syracuse side as well, kind of going from the middle, kind of getting a little bit stagnant.
Basically enough, only one player fouls out of this game, and that's Craig Forth. That was a great offensive board. And there it is! Ah! I was waiting for that all night long. Woo! Look at this, right from the offensive rebound, and all of that body. Yeah! Woo! Unfortunate positioning for number 24. This is one of the great dunks I've ever seen.
The Texas teabag dunk. That's what it's called. The Texas teabag dunk.
Warwick having the biggest moments in this Final Four is something to be said about how important he was to this team. I mean, he deserved both that moment and the block that we'll see on Saturday. Definitely cemented his role and how important he was on this team to have those two moments. Because everyone knows what Melo did. Everyone knows what GMAC did. Warwick could have been the overseen, underrated piece if he didn't have the biggest dunk in the semifinal and the block that ultimately won the final game.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I think if you look at the two biggest moments of the Final Four, those are those two moments. That dunk right there and then that block that we're going to see, on Saturday night was the final play of the game. Really, I mean, Kansas had one more look at it, but, those were the two biggest plays of the Final Four for Syracuse, both by the team.
I hope we get one more replay of that. I'm sure we will before the game ends.
Tomorrow night, 60 minutes. We're talking about the nation's sixth leading rebounder. Averaged a double-double this year.
Nothing like looking back on 2003 as a simpler time, huh?
For many, I'm sure.
Baylor's Lawrence Roberts, who averaged a double-double. Missed two from the line tonight. 0 for 2. Jordan. Buckman, though, there to retrieve it.
The offensive rebound on the missed free throw.
Recovery by Anthony, and that's going to be McNeil trying to keep Thomas out of position. And now it looks like things are evening up a little bit foul-wise. And that's 4 on McNeil. And that is team foul 7. Back to the line, Thomas for 1 and 1, and he's 0 for 3 tonight. Well, at one point,
And there's McNeil's fouls. As we said early in the game, he was able to get out there and make good use of them.
so now it's starting to even up a little bit. Fourth comes in for McNeil.
You see on the computers on the sports, old school 90s looking computers. I love it.
Is the center position in Syracuse's zone just destined to be a shifting pool of fouls between multiple players?
Been that way since the dawn of time, I guess. Right?
Freshman has had an outstanding game for Texas.
But I think when you look at the zone, I mean,
Foul situation, evening out.
a lot of times players are funneling or they're cutting down there. Or there's offensive rebounds, so there's a lot of room for fouls. You know, maybe not so much with the guards, just because teams are going to work it, they're going to pass it around. There's not going to be a lot of contact out there. A lot of action, funnels. If there's going to be action inside the arc, it's going to funnel down into the paint.
I think centers more than anyone would be preferring to play that man because, frankly, it really is the hardest position in the zone because you're going to have to get to the perimeter and man both shots in front of you and behind you. There's just so much responsibility at that position.
Yeah, no doubt. There's a lot of ground you have to cover, a lot of rebounding. The onus is on you. You got to get to the high post, get to the corner, as I mentioned. It's a lot. It's not that easy. You got to communicate with everybody because you can see everything from the position. Nice finish by Case.
GMAC had a couple of nice loose ball recoveries during the sequence that helped them get back out to this 9-point lead. He was just a hawk on the ball in this game.
I think they should be taking a timeout here and get a Boddicker in the game. They need another shooter. Maybe Harris on his bench. He's going to bring Sid Mill in. Yep. Ford. Inside Thomas. Beautiful assist. TJ Ford to Thomas. Did the Syracuse players think that Ford wasn't going to be looking for an open man there? They had played him as if he was supposed to.
GMAC 4 steals in this game.
Yeah. Texas got some big dudes on that front line, man.
Warwick in the lane.
Whoa. Warwick just had the perfect body for basketball. Warwick had a great NBA career, too. Another underrated aspect of him. He was double figures a few years in the NBA. Long one, too.
He played over him by 6 inches. 4 on Buckner. 2 shots at the line for Warwick.
Probably say top 10 Syracuse NBA career.
He had a long career, 2 different teams. I mean, you make it as long as he did in the league, and that's longer than most. I mean, I think a lot of people look at it and think that you have like a 12, 15-year career, but that's fairly rare.
Got to get another outside shooter, and with Buckner and Harris in there, he actually brought in outside shooters. Got the unpaid timeout. They call him Little Ricky from Hickory, North Carolina.
We're starting to get into crunch time here. Final 8 minutes coming up.
I'll take a brief break. Anything especially you want to hit on at this point in the game here?
I mean, nothing special. I mean, I think at this point, you're coming down to crunch time. You're going to want to start to see, Melo take over a little bit, take control of the game. But yeah, I mean, you're getting down to crunch time. Final game of the Final Four, and you're going to see who plays for Kansas in the title game.
All right, we'll fire it back up. Final 8 minutes.
Longhorns hoping to do something I've never heard of before. 2 visits to the Oval Office in the same season.
Yeah, 10 fouls, 13 shooting with double bonus the rest of the way.
Wonderful visit. He told us all about it with President Bush.
3 timeouts each. That's back when you got 5. And then you only get 4.
Workout room and Longhorn basketball games on a number of occasions. Jim, what we're going to see right now, I think, is the ball going with penetration and kickouts. And it's going to be TJ Ford's job to get inside the 2-3 zone. They've got it surrounded now. Harris, Mouton, and Boddicker. And then let Thomas go rebound. It's not time to panic if you're Texas, but I think that should be the game plan the rest of the way offensively. TJ Ford on penetration, then kick out to the 3 3-point shooters. It's a big 1-and-1 right here for Thomas. Texas and Thomas struggling at the line. Beautiful stroke there. 13 of 21, the team right now. That was the most positive foul shot that he's taken in this half. But you see what Mouton tried to sneak around Warwick almost pulled it off. He had his arm right over the top of Warwick and almost snuck inside. Working margin of 8. Look how long Anthony freezes the defender without using
Now,
the
if
dribble.
it utilizes a jab, doesn't take a dribble.
2-point basket, 29 on
10
the game.
points.
Ford could not give the ball up so easily. He's got to penetrate and kick. That's the largest lead of the game for Syracuse. Outside, slides off the rim. Boddicker driving in.
Now Syracuse breaking away here. Multiple times in this game they could have ran away with it, and this was the stretch where
Another steal by McNamara leads to a dunk by Melo on the other end. Just that dunk is pretty impressive. But where he caught it, takes the dribble, and look, he goes up right here, finishes. He just makes it look easy. And Melo kind of had that about his game, where he just made things look easy.
Well, for young players, watch a great young player. He realizes he can freeze the defense,
Backs
never
off.
uses the dribble, and therefore he's got all the pump fakes, good footwork, always squared up.
That's too much
Terrific
space.
job by a guy who's having a career game at the big time. It was just a monster game, 31 points, 12 rebounds. Buckman hit from behind by Fourth. It sounded pretty clean. And not a bad foul, though, because Buckman had an easy layup. Third on Fourth. The CBS Sportsline stat of the game, the stat line by Carmelo Anthony. And you can get complete tournament stats at CBS.
already 31 at this point.
Or on America Online, enter the keyword CBS Sportsline.
Well bored.
How efficient has his game been? And remember, we thought he could have some foul trouble and never got in foul trouble, even though Texas said they were going to go at him the start of this second half. How about this? In this half, he has not missed. He's 6 for 6 from the field in this half. Well, he's taking a page out of Villanova, playing the perfect second half.
Syracuse gives up another offensive rebound in this free throw.
Harris.
Again, a lot of time here. I'd be nervous seeing all these offensive rebounds come flying, and even with the way the game had tilted at this point. That's a turnaround possession there.
A double-digit lead, but no lead is safe for this much time on the clock.
That happens a lot in college basketball. You build that lead before there's enough time to run it down.
They're just taking the air out of the ball a little bit though here. Not in a rush.
Has the shot clock changed since this game? I want to say it did.
35, down to 30.
Yes, that's right. Possessions felt a little longer here.
3-point line, 19 feet, 9 inches, too.
Yeah, we've heard that.
You know that one. There's no cylinder is what?
I could give Texas some confidence. A 3 here would make this game very interesting. Move time for the 2.
Now, they moved the 3-point line back twice since this game, right? Because this is a short one here.
They did. They first moved it back to 20 feet and 9 inches. And then now, past season, moving to the international line. So maybe talk a little bit further.
And then Buckner goes down there, and you get a second chance. Melo had been rushing quite a few shots these last few possessions, and they save a possession and get one of Texas's more important players out of there. I was wrong. Buckman fouled out too. I missed that when I looked at the box.
Yeah, that's big. I mean, he really did some good work in the first half, getting to that high post, turn around, hitting the jumper. Tough on the boards, too.
This was a tough game with the whistle. I think both teams were a little frustrated with the way that went.
Yeah, second half, really. A lot of whistles in the second half.
Ooh.
Where are you on that list? No, way down the line. Way down the line.
Craig Forth now correctable.
Indoors back
Albany.
in those days.
Right
outside, huh? That's right.
Yeah, middle school, high school.
Yeah, little homecoming for him of sorts, going through Albany.
5:13 to go. So hard to
not going to be able to play too far from that.
And I really think Thomas taking too much time. Just penetrate and kick.
And there's fourth. No, that wasn't fourth, fifth, but he does pick it up at some point here.
Fourth.
Thursday on CBS CSI 9/8 Central here on America.
This game didn't quite have the epic ending that the next game does, but end of the first half was a lot of fun in this one.
Yeah, I think the second half not as exciting as the first. Like I said too, this is the second game of the night. Syracuse kind of with that bigger lead, they ended up winning by 9. So not quite the finish down the stretch, but still a good game overall.
Well, the G-Max steals, the dunk by Work, and then that reverse dunk by Melo to cap that last stretch.
Sure.
Exclamation point, certainly.
No doubt.
Looking to delay this game a little bit. A lot of time on the clock. There was a hold by Ford, didn't get called. Boeheim wanting to run off clock here. It's a little early.
Ivy, well done with the reach in. Mouton on the drive.
That's got to be goaltend. They don't call it. Warwick got by with.
What do you think?
Came across the lane. Mouton goes up. Let's take a look. Wow, I think that was awful close.
Still really bad. Still really bad.
I don't know if it goes in, but it's above.
Looked like it was on the way down the net.
And there's the fifth.
Go to the line for a pair.
Yeah, I thought that was goaltending. You see Mouton who double clutched it.
Again, insane how high above the basket Work gets with both his height, length, and jumping ability. He gets almost half his arm up there.
Long Warwick is, and he got up there on that one.
Fourth foul on Craig Forth. 2 shots, Boddicker.
Boddicker.
Texas trying to.
I love the hairdo on Boddicker.
Yeah.
23, Billy.
Texas team is 73.
We all need a haircut.
Like a Backstreet Boy.
Nice strokes by Boddicker.
7-point game.
I think Syracuse needs to get back to
Buckman definitely tight that he couldn't close this one.
Tried to speed things up a little bit, but I think that they can go ahead.
These are tough games to foul out of. Even Melo at the end of that first half looked really bummed to be in that position.
Pace is making some good decisions out there. Forth who's not being guarded because Thomas figures he's not going to try to get into the offense. Got himself out of position.
Not a bad foul when you consider this is a 52% shooter at the line. And he was right there for the layup. A little suggestion from Blaney.
The foul game started with 20 minutes to go.
You like those seniors on the floor.
A lot of free throws down the stretch. 4 minutes to go.
It's two different kind of coaches. Boeheim settled into his chair, hand on his face, and Texas's coach on the floor, basically. Oh, that's a great contest.
3, now you got a 5-point game. It starts to apply a little bit of pressure.
Yeah, Texas had one more run in them.
And Texas picking up the pace, and I really think that Syracuse kind of took that air out a little early.
And like you said, Syracuse did start moving into that clock-killing mode with about 6 minutes left, and I think they both just said it there.
Yeah,
Steam got taken out of the offense a little bit.
You still want to run your stuff. You want to, you don't want to be quick, but you still want to run your offense and be fluid. Syracuse, I think they did take the air out of the ball a little bit early there, and it shows when you're getting the ball, the fourth down there, and relying on him to make free throws.
All right, so here we go. 3:35 to go. Winner goes to play Kansas.
97. Syracuse here with the 5-point lead and possession. Double bonus on each side.
Both teams in the double bonus.
Where that ball should go, this
So why not? And again, good timeout by Boeheim to get them back into that mode.
Working it back over to the Anthony side.
There you go. They're just doubling Melo. Every time Melo gets the ball, they're just doubling.
Shot clock. Pace.
That is, whoo!
Big pressure release right there. That's what that makes. Go from 2 possessions back up to 3. Get a little bit happy with the 3.
Oh, Work almost got away with that one too, until they yelled it out and he just kept doing it. Work had a good whistle.
Who has been short on a number of free throws tonight. That's that dilemma. You're kind of looking up past.
Great jerseys here. We didn't get into that. Probably my favorite all-time Syracuse jersey.
Not the script.
Not the script. I like these with the block. I do like the script a lot, though.
It's more his case than it is the screen that's in the way that's flickering on and off up there, as you can see it. Stay with the shot. He'll be all right.
The flickering screen at the Final Four.
2003 technology.
2:59 left. 82-76.
All right. The timeout's coming in a flurry.
3 minutes to play. The strategy the rest of the way here, Billy. It's a very important defensive possession right here. For the simple reason that you have a 2-possession game, 6 points.
The Final Four college basketball March Madness shows you the versatility of some of these announcers. Guys getting thrown in from all kinds of different sports into these games. Love hearing Kevin Harlan this time of year.
Now there's the matchup. Boots on Anthony, down inside. Penetrating, looking back outside.
Favorite announcer, James?
Favorite announcer? I'd have to go. Honestly, I'd have to go Raftery at this point. He's calling these games. I mean, he would be calling these games this year too with Final Four. But Raftery.
You can see the pressure Anthony put on the double team defense. Ward just held his ground.
At this point, Work set the plate, and he closed the door with some of the pressure Melo was seeing here. You look at the replay, and when he goes up, it looks like he's going to dunk from that position.
I think he was trying to initially. He realized it was just a little short.
Oh my God! No one could play at an aerial level the way this guy could. Like no one's just playing at that height.
He can get up there. Just the length. I mean, the wingspan. Not too many people can do that. Be that athletic.
Syracuse should bring him back and work with Dolezaj a little bit.
Yeah, that'd be a great guy for Dolezaj. Obviously not.
Marquette did not fare well against Kansas in the first game. 34-point game.
Yeah, D-Wade Marquette have not been back to the Final Four since.
Now, interesting, Jim Boeheim, after the national championship in this one, as you'll see on Saturday, said that when he lost to Indiana, Bobby Knight told him he'd be back. And ultimately, after this game, he does get back. He tells Roy Williams the same, Kansas, that he'd be back again, and Roy Williams certainly was.
It's funny. Roy would later go on to win the UNC in 2009, I think it was. And then in 2016, Syracuse matched up with UNC in the national semifinal. And I think Boeheim had a funny comment, something to the effect of, I told him after 2003 that he would come in and he would win. He'd win one. Well, I was hoping I hope he didn't think I meant he'd win two. And as we know, Villanova would go on to win that year, but North Carolina would come back and win the following year.
just how complete this team was. They need other guys to step up with Melo, the pressure he was seeing, some of the shots he rushed. They needed other guys to step up and help him out as Texas was swarming. And fortunately, the defense did first and foremost, but some of the shots you see Warwick and others make down the stretch here were so crucial. But Syracuse bogged the game down in this moment, the last 6 minutes, to where Texas wasn't able to get a lot of open stuff. And ooh.
That's going to be on Boddicker. Don't know why Boddicker went for the foul there, but he held his ground. We'll see this miss. Erskine has it. It's right in his hands. He's right there. How does he miss this?
Unbelievable some of the shots they butchered inside in this one.
Yes. Shot it so well here, and he was open and set. Mouton, as we said in that first half with 20 points, he was 4 for 5 from 3, and that one wasn't even close.
So 2-possession game, 84-78.
Ooh, and that one had a knuckleball.
Some bad free throw misses in this one. Not abnormal.
McNeil comes back. He has 4. Sidnell Harris, who can shoot from the outside, is in for Texas. No one from Syracuse underneath. 1 of 2 for Evelyn. 7-point game.
All right. Final 70 seconds here.
Right to the middle of that zone. Get shots up as quickly as possible. Boddicker. Yes. Over Warren. Jim said great job. Could be a candidate.
But it's still not going away. Syracuse can't quite from the way.
And a minute 6 left. Boddicker, all 9 of 1. Jim Boeheim had teams that could advance to a championship game. He had relatively easy games, a 77-63 win over Providence, and a 77-69 win over Mississippi State. This one much tighter.
Now this is where Syracuse just blew it open.
Ivy pushes McNamara out of bounds.
Not the guy you want to foul.
The last guy you'd want to foul is the young man who led the Big Eastern free throw shooter.
You want to at least challenge the inbounder too.
This year didn't do anything other than make 86 and 95 fouls.
Just a bit of a bailout for Hughes here.
Yeah, and McNamara kind of drew that one. But the good news is for Texas, no time comes up. But you're right. You want to let them inbound and see if you can get a steal, a quick deflection. At least get it out of McNamara's hands and then commit a foul.
Especially down 4.
Right on the money.
Media definitely did get good seats for this one.
No doubt.
You had a guy sitting behind Boeheim probably.
Jim, that record you're talking about in the Big East.
Young Hop had a full head of hair on the sidelines over there.
Hot man, not the year people envisioned for him at Washington.
When you do substitute
And another thing that made Syracuse fans feel just a little bit better.
have to go back out and be standing on the sideline here
I don't know that it should, but you're right.
Oh, well, I looked at the Syracuse team all year and said, this is rough. There's a lot of teams out there that are having it a lot worse than they are.
Even in Syracuse's worst years, never below 500, which is pretty remarkable.
And now with Patrick Tapay maybe coming in the door, that streak could extend depending on how impactful he ends up being. That'll be interesting to see. I mean, this is a team right here in 03. Warwick, pseudo center impact, but not a ton of impact at the center position. You talk about Christmas and the years he had. Took him a little bit of time to come into his own. But overall, Syracuse, Fab Melo, another impact guy, but they haven't been ultra dominant at center, even through their best teams.
Yeah, not quite. I mean, even this year, you got fourth as the starting center and McNeil as the backup. Warwick probably really needs to. But they have the Dome 2003.
Did not know they had the watch party in there. That's cool.
Yeah. Even after the title game, they had everybody back to Carrier Dome, and Melo was there, and every time he went to go speak, fans would chant, one more year, one more year. He gets up on the mic, he says, y'all keep saying one more year. I'm going to say all 4 years. Obviously didn't let it happen, but I think part of him meant that, though. I mean, I think part of him really did want to stay in Syracuse for 4 years.
Maybe would have got picked by a better team when it was all said and done. We did the what ifs at noonsmagician.com this week, and one of them was Melo staying all 4 years, which I don't know, maybe 2 would have been something. I don't think 4 years was ever in the cards.
He was never staying all 4 years. I think he did want to come back for another year. You know, I think part of him really did in like an alternate world maybe want to stay 4 years. But, you know, if he's got a chance to go to the NBA, he's going.
And you want to end on the good note too. You get the championship.
Yep.
You ride out into the sunset. I wonder, does he stay if they lose that game to Kansas? I don't know. Maybe that shot gets off at the buzzer and they end up tying it or whatever that would have resulted in. And Kansas steals that game. I do wonder if maybe that sends Melo back to Syracuse.
I think he's gone either way. I mean, I think he really enjoyed his time, and I think with that, he probably did want to, spend some more time at Syracuse. But when you're a top 3 pick, top 5 in the draft, whatever it would have been, you go.
And great transition game, great press breaking to blow this one open. There's a 2-possession game, and they're running away by 10 at the end here. Dunk City.
Dunk for pace at the end. Dunk Curry on the top of him.
And with that, we go to Saturday, 7 o'clock, CBS. I think CBS is app, not CBS. CBS's primary channel. I think it's their Sportsnet that's going to be airing. Syracuse, Kansas, 7 o'clock on Saturday. Jim Boeheim's national championship. Melo's. This is what set it up.
And we'll be here. We'll be at noon. We're going to be doing a stream. Steve and Andy, they've been doing the live streams all year. We'll do one Saturday. I'm going to be on. Kevin's going to join as well. So be sure to, come hang out with us Saturday as well. Kind of testing the waters here with the stream today. But Saturday we'll have another one up. We'll be on Twitter as well. So if you're not already following us there, be sure to hit us there on Twitter as well. And, come hang out Saturday, man. It should be fun.
This is the only championship game we've known as Syracuse fans. If there was another year you felt like Syracuse maybe could have gotten to this point and we're doing our what ifs, what year do you think, looking back on it, they had the team you think to do it but just didn't come together?
Oh, 2010 for sure. I mean, I think if Arinze Onuaku doesn't go down, Syracuse was the most complete team that year. I mean, I think they beat the 2010 team in the title game. I think that was their best chance to get there. But, definitely 2012, I think they could have got there. I think that Kentucky team would have won either way. And then even, 2013, if they beat that Michigan team, they had beaten Louisville at Louisville earlier in the year. So there was a chance there. But I think 2010 was the best shot overall.
I do wish they got that chance in 2013, and there's nothing like coming within one game. You certainly just flip it the other way. And Michigan actually did do on the Big Ten Network a replay of that game, and John Beeline was live tweeting it, and he was saying himself that was a really tough game, but they had a pretty good game plan to break that zone down, and they certainly did. That was a powerhouse he had there. I wonder, is he going to return to the college game now that his time with the Cavaliers came to a fast end this year? Man, he got fired, or I guess they both parted ways, and he gave up money in doing so, but they parted ways just about a week or two before all this craziness hit. And if that came and went, he probably doesn't end up losing his job with the pause that has happened here. And Kenny Atkinson, another guy in the NBA, lost his job right before this hit.
Yeah. And back to that Michigan team, I mean, they played a really good team. He was playing great defense that year. They came out, they kind of went the 1-4 set against the zone, and that's really tough to defend. But Michigan played a really great game. But Syracuse had a chance at the end. I mean, if Brandon Trish or Marcus Carter Williams don't fall out, certainly a chance.
Hey, so for everybody who's hoping that Elijah Hughes will come back, maybe this Patrick Tapé news, something could have happened behind the scenes that changed his mind. Quincy Guerrier was on Instagram Live doing his thing with Eli the other night, trying to get him to stay. Oh, it's too funny. Quincy was saying if you thought he shot bad this year, look at him after 2-3 weeks of being inside with no hoops in Montreal. I think he said it was brick. Too funny seeing a lot of these guys on Instagram Live. There's no filter on there, and it was funny enough watching them too over the weekend. That's our show for tonight. Thanks to everybody who tuned in. We will get bits and pieces of this up on the Nunes Magician podcast stream, and maybe we'll do another one of these as quarantine continues down the stretch. This was fun, James. And as you said on Saturday, we'll be doing the live stream at nunesmagician.com for the 7 o'clock title game between Kansas and Syracuse to go back and watch some games. I'm going to do this with some Celtics games too, so keep it locked over here. Good night, everybody.
Be good. I'm going to bed, Bobby. Thank you for doing this. And for everybody else, thanks for tuning in.